Hey everyone, so today we're diving into Towa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree, an action roguelike RPG from Bandai Namco and developed by Brownies. It's always nice to see a major publisher support smaller, more experimental projects, but the big question is, does this game deliver on its unique ideas or does it stumble under its own ambition? Let's break it down. At its core, Towa is a run-based roguelike. You'll take control of a couple of 8 playable guardians, working through semi-randomized rooms filled with enemies until you face a boss. Along the way, you'll pick up graces, which are randomized upgrades that boost your damage or add modifiers to your combat style. If you've played other roguelikes, a lot of this will feel familiar. The twist here is in the narrative structure, where each successful run pushes the timeline of Shinju Village, which is pretty much your hub, forward by decades. While Towa and her guardians never age, the villagers around them grow, change, and pass on. Between runs, you return to the village to interact with townsfolk, strengthen your characters, and rebuild the community. It's a clever way to merge roguelike repetition with a sense of legacy and progression.
I would be grateful to be able to cleanse my travel-worn body. Something like this was long due. Yes, indeed.
Combat looks like your standard isometric action RPG, but there are 2 big systems at play. First, sword swapping. Each character wields 2 swords with different attacks. Durability drains as you fight, pushing you to switch between them. On paper, this should add variety, but in practice, it actually feels underbaked. The reason why is that swapping instantly refills durability. So, if you want to, you can just double swap back to your favorite weapon and spam the same abilities endlessly. There are certain graces that will push you to focus on this swap ability, however, they generally don't match the payoff of just a really powerful main attack. Second is the dual character system, because every run pairs a main fighter, the Tsurugi, with a backup called the Kagura. You technically control both, but in reality the Kagura mostly trails behind, often getting hit or contributing little. Although you do have the option of direct control of the Kagura, it often breaks the flow of combat, and their magic never feels as impactful as just getting really good at swordplay. Not only that, but their spells often have them stand in place, and that generally leads to them taking damage. For most of the gameplay, instead of a synergistic duo, it often felt like I was carrying around a liability. But the oddest and probably worst gameplay mechanic overall is revealed after a successful run, where to complete a ritual, you actually have to sacrifice your Kagura, and that character becomes unplayable for the whole rest of your playthrough. Now, although on the surface this feels like an original twist to the story and one that would force you to try different characters, however, in reality it does the exact opposite. Why would you invest resources into building up a character that you might have to sacrifice down the road? And as you progress through the game, you get less and less character choices left over. The best way to progress in the game is to choose one character, invest all your resources into making them as powerful as possible, and just have the Kaguras tag along. Now obviously, they try to make the game have emotional depth by having you sacrifice characters that you get to know throughout the game. But in the end, this ends up sacrificing gameplay where you could be experimenting and having fun with 8 different playable characters throughout the whole game. And at least for me, it just ended up feeling like a feel-bad mechanic. So the result in the end is that combat gets repetitive and predictable, and with 8 playable characters, you'll probably just find one whose style clicks and stick with them rather than experimenting. That also means that you'll learn more about that character through dialogue, but you'll probably miss out on the story beats of others.
Falling with Magaori. I think it might be dangerous unless we find somewhere safe.
Yet,
Where the game shines brightest is Shinju Village. The generational stories of its residents are heartwarming and full of detail. You'll see apprentices grow into masters, prankster kids become teachers, and family recipes evolve over decades. All while Towa remains a constant and beloved presence. Progression here also feels meaningful. Forging swords through minigames gives permanent stat boosts, while building structures, training at the dojo, and slotting gems all steadily strengthen your characters. And even failed runs give you resources to invest back into the village, so your time doesn't feel wasted. Where I did have a few issues with the storyline is the pacing and delivery, where you have to sit through almost 45 minutes of exposure before you actually get into your first real run. And although this sets up the story nicely, for some people just wanting to jump in and try out the game, it is slightly frustrating. This could have been split up and paced out in a better fashion. And although most of the dialogue is well written and interesting, some of it just becomes a little too lengthy. And I would have preferred most of the conversations to feel a little more concise. You can still deliver emotional impact without making extremely long and meaningless conversations. There is luckily a skip button on the dialogue for conversations that you're less interested in, but make sure to take the time to actually activate these dialogue events, as you're rewarded with a significant amount of resources. So the game is trying to reward you for engaging with its story. I also had a ton of fun and spent more time than I should have fishing in the village, which is a nice little side game that once again rewards you with resources. I would have liked it, however, to be a little bit more in-depth and a little more interactive, as it's primarily luck-based and pretty simple to accomplish. Lastly, there's also cosmetic sword customization, but because of the zoomed out camera, you'll rarely notice those details in battle. So there are fun options to unlock, but they are just surface level.
The blade has become dull. Oh no.
So overall, the village storytelling and themes of time, legacy, and generational change are beautiful, but the broader main story falls flat, as it is a pretty generic affair. The villain Magatsu is just a faceless evil force without charisma or depth, and the ending doesn't quite stick the landing. But don't worry, this is spoiler free, so I'll let you experiment that for yourself if you do end up picking up the game.
She was back in the village. Only Towa, born of Shinju.
Visually, Towa might not push the technical limits, but it's bursting with charm. The character artwork is excellent, the environments are vibrant, and the soundtrack from Hitoshi Sakimoto is a perfect fit. My only gripe with the art direction is that some of the battle arenas feel more like palette swaps. And performance-wise, I played the game on the Nintendo Switch 2, and everything ran extremely smoothly. So after 25 hours, Towa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree left me mixed, and that's why I'm going to be giving the game a 6.5 out of 10. The presentation and the village progression are fantastic, and I loved watching Shinju Village grow across the decades, but combat, which is the heart of a roguelike, never feels as sharp or engaging as it should. I feel that underdeveloped mechanics, repetitive encounters, and a weak overarching story drag down what could have been something special. So if you're here for a heartfelt village simulator wrapped in roguelike trappings, there is some enjoyment to be had here. But if you're looking for a truly standout action roguelike, Towa doesn't quite hit the mark. So that's my take on Towa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree. What do you think? Do the village stories outweigh the combat flaws, or is this one you'll be skipping? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you aren't already. And as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.